Hi folks, my name is Emmanuel John. Welcome to another edition of the Drug and Alcohol Education Series with addictioninthefamily.com. My name is Emmanuel John. I've been in the treatment field for 40 years. I've written several books. One, Addiction, Why They Use, and Addiction, Am I Powerless? One for the family, one for the substance user. Today I'm covering some information that is in the books in much more detail. But I'm covering it today just briefly, and we're going to go through the different paradigms and theories of addiction treatment. Why? Because if you're going to treatment, you need to know what kind of treatment you're looking for to make sure you're going to the right place, or maybe you're looking for someone else for treatment and you want to make sure they get what you think they need. Let's get started. As always, please like and subscribe. The little button down in the corner, you'll also see a link to addictioninthefamily.com where you can get the books and see other videos as well. You can also find me on YouTube. So does anybody know this guy? His name was Otis, and he was on a show called Andy of Mayberry, or the Andy Griffith Show, where Ron Howard, the director, actually got his start as a little redheaded child. Otis was the town drunk. Everybody loved him, but he was the town drunk. They even let him take the key and let himself in jail at night so that he wouldn't be on the street. Otis was a part of what we called many years ago, back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, the impaired model. And basically it was that if you were an alcoholic, that you just couldn't help it. There wasn't anything you could do about it. It was a genetic misfunction or dysfunction. So your genetic code was often suspect, but that's just how you were. It's not that you're a bad person, you just have those genes and they made you one of them alcoholics. Right? So you're born that way, just bad luck. The belief was that they can't do anything about it. There's nothing that you're going to teach them, show them, train them to do. They're going to be drunks for the rest of their life. As it states, you can't change. Treatment was just provide shelter, get them out of the way, make sure they don't get injured, make sure they don't injure anybody else. Prognosis, they were going to be this way until the day they died. The effective treatment, there really wasn't any, but it was only identified that they were an alcoholic in the late stages. The presentation at court, very interesting picture. You see the constable there holding the man up, and as he has his proverbial hat in hand, he is going to jail because he got in trouble probably for being alcoholic. The dry moral model developed shortly after the impaired model, and the dry moral model just said that you weren't really helpless about it, you just had a poor value system. The cause was that you were sinful and that you gave in to temptation. Right? You had a bad value system. The belief alcohol and drugs affect everybody the same way. You just chose not to follow the rules of society and of living. And that made you a sinner, but it also made you an alcoholic. Treatment, there's no real treatment. Take the drugs away, remove the alcohol, and there won't be a problem with alcohol. Ever heard of a thing called prohibition? People who believed in the dry moral model are the ones who champion the prohibition, basically making alcohol illegal to drink. There wasn't any treatment, as said before, so there wasn't any help. So let's change the law, and they don't have access to it, they won't do it. Prognosis is poor. It was poor, except for religious conversion. That means that we're going to get you saved, and you will be fine, and you won't have those wicked temptations anymore. Right? That's why it's considered a moral model. The effect, there really wasn't any treatment, and oftentimes what happened is that religious conversion didn't work, and the people who were drinking felt even more ashamed. So a lot of times they disappear, because if they stayed around, people would start suspecting their entire family. So a lot of times you would hear of people with jobs in faraway places. Your father is working up in Alaska, or he's working on the railroad. He's working in the coal mines 3 states over, and he's doing that so you can survive. But in reality, a lot of times, he was just an alcoholic who had disappeared to spare everybody. This gentleman, I actually got this picture from a website called hobos.com some years back. And the hobo is what you got when all those people left their houses. They jumped trains, they hung out in the inner cities more, where they could find other people like themselves, because that's where all the trains head. And along with the dry moral model came the wet moral model. The wet moral model was similar, but the wet moral model believed, as the name implies, that you could actually still drink. You didn't have to be dry, that there were ways that you could still drink and stop being an alcoholic. They believed that the reason why you were having these troubles is because you weren't following the rules of drinking. When to use, what time to use, what day to use, not before work, not during work, not until dark, not until after work, only on the weekends. Treatment was to learn to use responsible. DWI schools, that we send them to people still to this day, make you take drug classes, make you go to drug and alcohol treatment where you have to sit in drug and alcohol education. Why? To teach you how to drink socially. There are still to this day, in a lot of Department of Motor Vehicles around the country, programs called drinking driver programs or social drinking programs. They're still labeled these things today. Prognosis is poor because it didn't take into account physical addiction. In the moral model, it believed that you just had a choice, that you had to choose not to do it. And if the penalties were hard enough, you would choose not to do it. They didn't take into account any kind of withdrawal or anything like that. The wet moral model, it was popular because guess what? If I'm an alcoholic, I'm going to listen to your solution and I get to keep drinking at the same time. We all know how that worked out. These two gentlemen, Dr. Bob Smith and Bill Wilson, were the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. The gentleman on the right side of the picture is Bill Wilson. He is the gentleman who wrote the Alcoholics Anonymous book and basically designed the 12 steps and 12 traditions as we know them today. How does a 12-step model work? It's a change of lifestyle and behavior, meaning old friends, old places, got to get rid of them all, got to change them all, a lot of change. The symbol of AA is a triangle, which in physics represents delta or change, a lot of change. The cause, they believed, was an allergy to the substance causing a mental obsession. This may be a little confusing, but this was the first idea that it was a physiological problem. Think of it this way. There's an agent. Say we're talking about pollen. If we're in a room and pollen fills the room, some people are going to react to the pollen sooner than others. Some people will never, but some people will just take longer to react to the pollen. They believed that alcohol was an allergy the same way, that worked the same way. Alcohol, the substance, would get in some people and it wouldn't affect them much. They wouldn't have a reaction to it. They would just consume alcohol, feel a little buzz, nothing. Some people, they believed, got hit harder, like the pollen would hit a person with allergies harder, and that person's body would have a physical reaction. In the AA theory, the physical reaction or allergy created the desire for more. Behaviors, not caring, being self-centered, self-absorbed, needing to get the next drink. That is the allergy. So you get exposed to it, you're going to want more of it. Some people have the allergy, some people don't. What's the treatment? Attend meetings, learn by example, repair the wreckage of the past, and not use. Zero alcohol use was the way. Because as long as you were around that pollen, you were going to have a reaction to it. You were going to want it, desire it, use it more than you should, and for longer periods of time. The prognosis here was actually fairly good if the person is motivated, meaning if they're scared enough, if they are worried enough about it, willing to do, or as they used to say, it was willing as only the dying can be. Then you surrender to the self-help group and you're willing to listen to what these people had to say. It conflicts with some models, but it also works great with almost all the other models. It might sound confusing, but it conflicts with the wet moral model, where you were allowed to drink, which was just before this. The 12-step model hit our society, or was developed in basically the 1930s during the era of prohibition repeal. The old medical model, which sort of developed after the 12-step model, started looking at this allergy concept. They believed that in the old medical model, again, it's a medical model, it's not a psychological model, it's a medical model. They believed that excessive drinking caused the problem. that it caused your body, your organs, your liver, and your brain to actually change. So you were affected by the chemical exposure. Once the body is damaged, control is lost. Some repair is possible, but they didn't depend on it. Your organs were changed. They call it pathological organ change, as you'll hear again about later in the chronic disease model. So treatment, detox, and long-term care and intervention. That's what the medical. You come in, your body's in a state, whether you're addicted to a drug, you're about ready to OD, or you're really drunk, we're going to get your body back to health just to remove this chemical from your body. Sometimes it just meant waiting around for a couple days, shaking and screaming. Prognosis was poor. People often would give in. They couldn't deal with the process. I need to go have a drink. This isn't, my life is different. I'm not like you. I have a problem. And that they used to call it awfulizing sobriety. The effect of treatment, it almost guarantees failure because there's no aftercare. There's nothing to be done for the person other than to get the chemical out of their system because it's a medical model. This gentleman lived 1856 to 1939. Anybody know who he is? Quick. Who is it? If you said Sigmund Freud, you got it. And what did he create? Or what did he found? He founded the psychodynamic model. Basically, he believed that the alcoholic was an addictive personality. It presented through emotional conflict as manifestation of a dysfunctional family, right? So there's an underlying psychological conflict. The belief is that addiction is a symptom of the problem. It's not really the problem. The problem is the family in which you grew up in. Addiction is a secondary problem that is caused by the dysfunction. How do you treat that person? You get them psychotherapy and you get them counseling. The prognosis was fair, but you have to have a knowledgeable therapist who also understands the origins of chemical use and addiction and what they do to the body. This takes a really long time, and a lot of people don't have this kind of money to afford this kind of psychoanalysis. The effect of treatment, personality issue is the focus. Let's get you to stop being that alcoholic person and become a different person. Why? You can become a different person if it's not a primary disease or a primary problem. It's called a strain order now. If you kindly back up another 99 yards. Sounds like maybe a dysfunctional family, right? The family interaction model is where that dysfunctional family language came from, believe it or not. The cause was that there was a pathological family system. You grew up in a bad environment, that environment being your families per se. The belief was that addict is a role of the dysfunctional family system, much like in the psychodynamic model. It's a natural likely occurrence of all this dysfunction happening in the house. We're going to have overachievers, underachievers. We're going to have the people who disappear. We're going to have the clown. We're going to have these other personality roles that develop in a dysfunctional family. The problem with this theory is that the family being sick is what made the person sick. You can't get the person well and send them back to the sick family because they're going to return to type and be exactly who they were in that family. So you have to get the whole family out. That's really hard to do. Really hard to do. To get everybody in one place. It's hard to get two people for a couple session in one place. Sometimes it's hard to get one person in a counseling session. Focus not on the current use, only on past motivation. As people use, new reasons for use become valid. Meaning, I might have had a hard time growing up in the house with those people. Then I went out and I found drugs, but now I created a whole new life and a whole new way of behavior. I might like it now. I've become conditioned to the chemical. I like what the chemical does for me, or some people actually say they think they love it. Speaking of love, the love model doesn't necessarily mean that it has to come from your family. They believe that you don't need to get love from your family. You can get the love from almost anywhere, but you have to have it. Why did you become an alcoholic? Because you didn't have enough love. Not because you didn't get it from your family, but you just didn't get enough love. Belief is basically use as a product of self-concept. If you thought you were worth more, if you were loved more as a child, you wouldn't do this to yourself. You would see the damage you're doing and you would know you're worth more than this. Treatment, get the person nurtured and loved in positive relationships. AA and NA and 12-step programs, they do that a lot. They say they love you until you can love yourself. They believe that it is an aspect of healing. The prognosis for this model, there was only a handful of treatment centers that were doing this stuff back in the 80s. And while some of them are still out there, they pretty much call themselves like codependent treatment centers now. And that's pretty much their focus, not necessarily alcoholism. They usually require that someone be off of drugs and alcohol before they even come to their facilities now. The effect of treatment, a lot of blaming. My parents didn't love me, my family didn't love me. I grew up in a messed up town. I grew up in an industry as working construction where everybody drinks, and nobody really cared about anybody. The new medical model, or as we call it, or as I referenced earlier, the chronic disease model. They believe in the chronic disease model that there is a predisposition coupled or related to a pathological organ change, meaning you put the chemicals in your body long enough and your body will change. The way your body utilizes or metabolizes alcohol becomes different. And there's some evidence and some proof of that as well. So you either have the genetics for being it, everybody in your family was an alcoholic. They don't really get into because it's a medical model, the fact that maybe it's learned behavior, that you grew up watching it and seeing it. So that's how you became because that's what you know. Dad has a beer every day at 5, and if you don't have a beer every day at 5, you didn't work hard. That's a different model. That's not the chronic disease model. The chronic disease model, again, is a medical model. So either you're predisposed to it or you changed your body and now you're addicted. Once you have an addiction, all use must stop because you're just going to damage your body more. Treatment, abstinence. We get the person clean in the medical model. We give them some education. You have this problem. You can't drink. You get that. You use that information and say, yep, that's me. I can't do it. Then maybe, because it's a medical model, we're not going to do it, but we're going to send you out and you should try to get some help. Go to AA. Go to NA. You have to take personal responsibility in a medical model, in a chronic disease model, or a medical model for that matter. Prognosis, good if it's combined with self-help. Medical model treatment is basically, chronic disease model treatment is your first 30 days. Sometimes some long, extended live-in facilities can go months, but you're still going to have to be in AA if you want to have long-term success, or NA. Change of life is dramatic. People got to be ready to change. They got to be ready to let go of their old friends and humble themselves, maybe even get a connection with the higher power to have success with the 12-step models. The biopsychosocial model is what most centers and most people, most therapists, myself included, use today. Causes vary for different people. We have biological problems, psychological problems, and social problems, which is both environment and family. All treatment theories can be used together. We're going to give you a little bit of this. We're going to teach you about the chronic disease model of addiction. We're going to get you into 12 steps. We're going to heal up some of that those underlying conflicts from your childhood where you might have not been treated well or not been treated sufficiently. We could call that counseling if you want. We're going to get you into those 12 steps, and then we're going to try to get your family on board as well. So it's holistic. It's everything, putting everything in one pot and using them all to help the person get better. It is what works. It is the best. It is pretty much what you're going to see today because most insurance companies are going to require it in order for payment. The effect benefits of all models, lots of different approaches. Some pieces work for some people more than others. So as a therapist, we get to interchange some of these things. We can send you out to a psychiatrist if we think it's a physiological problem, or we can send you to a drug counselor if you're just too into the lifestyle and you need to get out of that. So that's the basis of most of the models. If you have any questions, you can always email me directly at the email address below. You can go online. You can respond to this video wherever you may be finding it, and I will be more than happy. I do a thing called the the drug and alcohol questions and answer sessions. I'm always willing to do a video for people if I can get a good topic. I have quite a few on the website at addictioninthefamily.com. Remember, subscribe. I'm going to be doing a couple more of these videos in the next couple weeks and days and weeks. And would love to have your feedback or questions. I hope it helps. If you need to get treatment, I hope you find what you're looking for. Thanks. Have a great day.